From the Open Season Property Studio, welcome to SuperTalk Outdoors, where we celebrate every single Monday at lunchtime the world-class outdoors of the state of Mississippi, because we are the capital of the outdoors in America. I want to thank you for joining us on the powerful SuperTalk Mississippi Radio Network. Some of you listen to SuperTalk Outdoors at supertalk.fm, Amazon Alexa, the SuperTalk Mississippi app, or on SuperTalk TV at C Spire TV. Thank you for doing that. But you may also be watching the show on YouTube or Facebook or listening on your favorite podcast. And we appreciate that too. We try to be there wherever, whenever you want to engage in the show. Today, it's June 17th, 2024. It's amazing how fast time is flying. Listen, yesterday was Father's Day. For all the fathers who are listening now, I want to give you a sort of a belated Father's Day. Happy Father's Day. It was a great day at my house. I have 4 grandkids. It's always wonderful to spend time with my kids and my grandkids. But you can tell the influence the outdoors has on my grandkids by the cards that they make for me. One made a card. It was a 3D picture. It was literally 3D. It had a little square box, and inside it, he had drawn on 2 people. It was me and him inside of a shooting house, and there was a deer standing up and some trees. Just a beautiful, like, hunting setting. My granddaughter, he's 6 years old. My granddaughter, who was 8, gave me a card shaped like a boat. My grandson, Liam, drew Uncle Jake's farm. Jake Carter, my hunting son, his father, Rick Carter, is a good friend. He doesn't hunt or fish. So Jake, for most of his adult life, has fished with and hunted with me. But he drew Uncle Jake's farm. And it's just cool to reflect and to really understand how much spending time in the outdoors has made such a difference in their lives. Hey, listen, Theodore Roosevelt is somebody I'm a big fan of. You go back and read anything he's written, anything he's done. I mean, talk about living by example. He once said that great thoughts speak only to the thoughtful mind, but great actions speak to all mankind. And essentially what he's saying is, you better put your money in your mouth you better put your money in your actions where your mouth is. You know, he also said this. He believed very strongly in sort of public access to land. He said the rights of the public to the natural resources outweigh private rights and must be given its first consideration. I always thought that was amazing. But, you know, he wanted us as Americans, he wanted big time for us as Americans to enjoy the great outdoors. And by the end of his presidency, he had created 5 national parks. I'm headed to Yellowstone in a week, incidentally. 4 game refuges, 51 national bird reservations, and as well as the National Park Service. The National Forest Service. You think about that. You're talking about putting great actions into work for mankind. He was incredible in that way. You know, this show gives us an opportunity to celebrate Mississippians who believe greatly and live by what Roosevelt stood by, what Roosevelt's legacy is. And today's guest is no exception. Drew St.John's had a long history of giving back. More recently, he was one of Governor Tate Reeves' appointees to the Outdoor Stewardship Trust Fund Board of Trustees. If we were going to define the kind of leader we wanted Governor Reeves to appoint to boards like the Outdoor Stewardship Trust Fund or to the Mississippi Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks Commission or other boards like those, we'd want to see people like Drew St. John. Today, we're going to get a better understanding of why I say that. So without any further ado, let me welcome Drew St. John's to SuperTalk Outdoors. Drew, how you doing, my friend?
I'm great, Ricky. How are you today?
I'm doing fantastic. So where are you sitting right now?
I'm actually sitting in my office in Canton, Mississippi at Deep South Precast. We manufacture engineered site retaining wall blocks and different things like that. So it's all well up here.
Hey, listen, when I was doing some searching, just studying you and the work that you do in your business, the fact that you had this other incredibly successful business that you sold, you can tell us about that here in just a second. But I noticed when you opened up that building that had a ribbon cutting there, that it was a wonderful celebration. Tate Reeves was there. It's you could have just rode off into the sunset, but you decided to start all over again, didn't you?
unbeknownst to my wife, that is a statement that's correct. I'm not ready to give it up yet. I'm headed in that direction, but I'm still involved with my other company, New South Access and Environmental Solutions, and they're still doing great things. I was out in Houston helping them last week, and believe it or not, I can look out my window over here and see the crane at AWS down at the new data center locations. We actually purchased this property from the Madison County Economic Development Authority, and we're so excited to see a new neighbor like that come to the neighborhood.
Boy, you talking about, I mean, listen, if Tate Reeves is anything else, he is going to be known as an economic development governor. I mean, you think about the projects that we've announced just in the past 6 months. It's incredible. That data center, that is a record breaker there, isn't it?
Oh, there's not another state in the country that wouldn't be envious of that coup. And he is really, he's doing a wonderful job there. The educational system is, being uplifted. We've moved from 49th to like 32nd and different things like that. So it's exciting, and the quality of life is going to be important. We're going to have the business, and we're going to start attracting a higher level of employee and different careers like that. And if we don't provide a wonderful quality of life, they're not going to stay here. And I do believe that it's just the first chapter, is to get the businesses here and then to make the economies and the quality of life sustainable for decades to come or centuries to come.
I think it's making quite a statement when we're sort of placing our bets on innovative technology and what's happening with AI and the role that data centers is going to play in that. So just a heck of a story. Hey, I had the opportunity to visit with the Speaker of the House, Jason White, last week on my other show, the Ricky Matthews Show, and he talked about his love of the outdoors. And he said when he travels outside the state of Mississippi, that's not a part of Mississippi you have to sort of try to put in perspective. People know when you say you're from Mississippi what it means. And that's one of the reasons why I say this is the capital of the outdoors. But you live in Madison, but you have a place up in the Delta. You have a place down here on the coast. You kind of do like I do. You can toggle in the summer to the coast and enjoy some red snapper fishing and whatever else you might do. And then you can enjoy the deer hunting and duck hunting up in the Mississippi Delta. But, man, we do live in a great state, don't we?
It's unbelievable. And I can tell you, it comes from experience. I lived in Memphis for 10 years, and that's when I started cultivating my love for duck hunting, obviously, because I was in the, middle of the, flyway in a wonderful spot. And I lived in Kentucky for 8 years. And guess what? We don't know how good we have it with the diversity between the Gulf of Mexico and the hills and the Delta and the piney woods and everything. And when I lived in Kentucky, their gun season for deer lasts 2 weeks.
Yeah.
You have almost 3 months. I mean, we have got to protect the resource. We've got to realize what we have, and we've got to work harder to sustain it going forward, because I've got a little 4-year-old grandson, and I've got 5 little grandchildren, and they love to ride around at the farm and that sort of thing. But we've got to make sure we take care of what we have going forward.
Well, what's interesting, again, coming back to what Roosevelt said, great thoughts speak only to the thoughtful mind, but great actions speak to all mankind. Drew, you have literally put your actions and your money where your mouth is. I think about your commitment to Mississippi State, and when you do a search on your name and start to understand this trust that you set up, the St. John Family Trust, and what you're doing to give back to Mississippi State repeatedly, not just in one program, but in multiple programs, where did that commitment come from?
Well, I think we have to pay it back. And I'll be honest, my last company that I started in 2007, New South, it came out of a Mississippi State alumni magazine. There was a company in Arkansas that had developed this new engineered Matt, and I went and talked to him, and we started putting together a business plan together, and the next is history. And I sold it to Jones Companies back in 2016, stayed on for 3 years. But, it's because of Mississippi State that got me. So I've gotten, and I love to deer hunt, I love to duck hunt, and I just think we've got a cherished blessing with the Deer Lab. And
well, what we're gonna do, we're actually gonna come back to that here in just a second. You talked about the Deer Lab, but you have a pretty significant role in helping to keep that sustained. We'll talk more about that when we come back as we continue to tell the story of kind of committed Mississippian Drew St. John. We'll see you after this. Welcome back to Super Talk Outdoors from the Open Season Property Studio. Listen, no matter what kind of hunting land you're doing, listen, it doesn't mean land, just any kind of hunting. Whether you're looking for 40 acres or 4,000 acres, if you're looking to buy land, you need someone you can trust. He's a hunting land hunter. Call my friend Lake Pickle from Open Season Properties at 601-750-2487, 601-750-2487. We're lucky to have Lake Pickle as a sponsor of the show. By the way, we're luckier even more to have him as a conservation leader in this state. We're just thrilled to be associated with Lake Pickle. Now let's get back to our conversation with Drew St. John. When we went to the break, we were talking about his commitment to Mississippi State. He has given back in multiple ways. And one is a deer program at Mississippi State that you've heard me talk about many times before. I've had Dr. Bronson Strickland on the show many times. But Drew, tell us about your role as it relates to that program.
Well, I actually am very privileged to serve on the Wildlife Advisory Committee. And so I've gotten to know those folks up there a good bit. And, after I sold New South, I said, what do we need? What do we need to continue the legacy and improve wildlife, and obviously deer, which is obviously the #1 game animal in the state. And, they suggested, an assistant, an endowed professorship. And that's what we did with Bronson Strickland at the Deer Lab. And I've gotten to be a great friend of his, and that's a definite bonus. And I think the work that he and Steve Damaris do is world renowned.
It really is world renowned. Listen, the show that I had with Bronson and William McKinley about chronic wasting disease has been viewed a bunch of times. It was really, I think, first of all, it's timely, it's more recent. And it speaks to why we have to pay attention to it. We don't have a cure for chronic wasting disease, but what we do have is best practices emerging from across the nation, that gives us the opportunity to study those best practices and implement it here in Mississippi and slow it down so that we can give science an opportunity to catch up. But Bronson and William and Steve, they're all doing a great job of keeping the focus on how we can understand what's happening around the country and also learn from those best practices. And that's part of what you wanted this program to be, isn't it?
Absolutely. That's where we've got to go. I mean, the reality of CWD is here, and it stretches from Benton County to Harrison County, the northern part of the state, to all the way to the Gulf of Mexico. And we've got to be practical about it. And I do believe that the Wildlife Commission is focused in that regard, and I'm totally confident that the governor is going to put on 2 very capable new appointees at some point in time into the future, because he does understand. We've had conversations, and he understands about the future of wildlife and conservation and our state parks, and how that all builds that quality of life and how important it is to the success of our state.
Yeah, it Drew, you can't be more right. I think the last thing we need to be doing, given that we've got people like Bronson Strickland and William McKinley and others like them. The last thing we need to be doing is trying to push alternate views of chronic wasting disease. The science, the data is very clear, and the direction is getting clearer. Again, we're not going to stop it. We're just simply not going to stop it, but we can darn sure slow it down, and those best practices are emerging. And we got to quit debating that reality and just we first of all get the public well educated, and then do what we got to do to deal with it. Hey, let's shift gears for a second. In my conversations with your brother, restaurateur Robert St. John, I've had a great appreciation for the role your mother played in helping you and your brother develop a love of the outdoors. But she really got it, didn't she?
She did. I'm telling you, you're talking about not knowing what to do. Our dad died. I was 10, Robert was 6. And the first thing she did, and the best thing she ever did, she took $12,000. We bought a lot at Johns Bayou. We put a mobile home on it, and we bought a boat with a 6 horsepower Evinrude motor on it. And we didn't know better enough that we went from Johns Bayou down Bluff Creek on the Pascagoula River out to Round Island, the 3 of us. I'm running the boat. My mother's up in the front seat and Robert's in the middle. But I tell you what, it provided, my grandfather retired early and came down and kind of stepped up. He was a wonderful, really taught me about conservation. He and his brother grew up on the Caney Fork River outside of Nashville and fished and hunted every day. And and that's what she spent, $12,000 on the boat, the mobile home, and the lot. And you couldn't have gotten 1,000 times the return that we did. It was wonderful with fantastic memories. And actually, for her 75th birthday, Robert and I loaded her up and we took her on a boat ride up and down Bluff Creek. So it was wonderful.
So, I mean, really, it's such a special tribute to your mother and her awareness that a family that spends time in the outdoors together stays together. And I mean, again, it's a gift that she gave you that you still enjoy today in big ways. I was so thrilled to see you appointed to the Outdoor Stewardship Trust Fund Board of Trustees. The governor, if you go back and look at some of his posts, like, for example, on a more recent round from the Outdoor Stewardship Trust Fund, he said another great round of projects. The Mississippi Outdoor Stewardship Trust Fund is making an incredibly positive impact on our state. We'll continue to do everything we can to preserve our state's natural beauty for next generation of Mississippians. But he really believes that. And I really, when I say that you're if you had to say you're kind of the poster child for the kind of people we want to see appointed, you're surrounded by people like that on that board, aren't you?
Oh, I am so fortunate, number one, first of all, to be appointed by the governor, and number two, to get to know the other 6 trustees, because in their own rights, I don't think the lieutenant governor or the governor could have made better picks. And, it was tough going. I mean, we all kind of looked at each other. We started with a blank piece of paper, and we did a lot of hard work. But I tell you what, we've done a wonderful thing by hiring Ricky Flint. He's doing a wonderful job as executive director. We've got so much momentum. I mean, if you take we've been funded by the legislature, $10 million in the first year, $15 million in the second year, and most recently, this past April, another $12 million. So it's a total of $37 million. What we expect is, with the match funds that are coming in from outside the state, most likely, we will exceed, after this funding round and projects that we'll start scoring the end of October, I think there's going to be $100 million benefit to the state. $100 million. It's phenomenal. And so we're just getting started, and it's a wonderful program. Some wonderful projects coming along. I've got that place down in Pascagoula. I can sit out on my porch and watch them building the new artificial reef that is led with the Nature Conservancy, and then we've contributed substantial over $1 million worth of funds. And just to see that happening, that we're going to be growing oysters and that's fishing habitat, is just incredible.
We worked for 2 years to get the fund in place. And the main thing we kept saying is these other states have a fund where they can draw down money, matching funds from various sources, especially the federal government. And finally, we got everybody aligned around it. And it's great to see in actual action that is actually doing that. When you can turn nearly 40 million into over 100 million, and all that's being invested. One of the great things about looking at the projects, incidentally, Drew, is you've done a great job of putting a mix of small projects that can make a big difference with more, some very substantial projects. You guys obviously have had a notion about yourselves to say, look, we're not going to put all our money in this, and we're not going to do a bunch of small projects. We're going to try to work on a mix of projects, and you've done that, haven't you?
Well, the population of the state, they're not all hunters and fishermen. You've got biking, you've got kayaking, you've got people that go to state parks and do festivals and different things like that. So we're really, and there's a lot of things that we've done with non-governmental agencies and organizations, and also with cities and counties.
Yeah, it's exciting. Hey, listen, Drew, we'll have you back in the next few weeks, and I want to talk about hunting and fishing. We're going to just spend a show talking about hunting and fishing because both of us share a love of the coast and the Delta, and I want to tell some stories. But until then, thanks for joining me, my friend.
Great. Thank you. Have a great day.
Yeah, you bet. This has been Drew St. John. Hey, when we come back on the other side, we're going to be joined by Pierce Young from the Mississippi Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks. We'll see you after this.